Welcome to the Unit Economics Podcast. I'm Josh Dubinsky. On today's episode, I sit down with Aishwarya Iyer, founder and CEO of Brightland, a brand best known for its high-quality, California-sourced olive oils, vinegars, and other pantry items. Ash started Brightland after a career spanning beauty, technology, and venture capital, combining her interest in olive oil with the desire to build products that encourage people to live a little more offline. 8 years later, Brightland's become one of the most recognized names in the space, while managing to remain remarkably deliberate about how the business grows. In this conversation, we talk about the realities of entering the olive oil industry without a traditional food background, how Ash approached pricing and product development, as well as why she's been so selective about retail expansion. We also discuss gifting, collaborations, fundraising, personnel management, and how her approach to building Brightland has evolved over time. Without giving away too much, I think Ash's philosophy is one of the most unique I've come across to date, so it shouldn't come as a surprise that I learned a lot during our conversation. As always, I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. Ash, thank you so much for taking the time to do this today. If you wouldn't mind just starting with a brief background on yourself, that would be great.
Hi, happy to be here. I'm Aishwarya Iyer. I go by Ash. I live in Los Angeles with my husband and daughter, and I'm the founder and CEO of a company called Brightland, and we really are here to make sensory enchantment for your everyday meals. We're best known for our extra virgin olive oils, vinegars, and honey, all sourced from wonderful family-run farms in California. And yeah, I'm really happy to be here.
Tell me a bit about your professional background in the years leading up to deciding you were going to launch what became Brightland. What did that look like? What were you working on?
I went to the Gallatin School of Individualized Study at NYU. So I created my own concentration, which was media and globalization with an emphasis on South Asian gender studies. I thought I could maybe go into microfinance at the time. That was really interesting to me. I had interned at an anti-domestic violence center for South Asian women. I interned at L'Oreal. I was dabbling and just passion. I'd say multi-hyphenate in terms of passions and interests, and then landed at L'Oreal and was in the luxury products division at Lancôme. And that was my first, I think, foray into CPG and what physical products could look like. But then the Great Recession happened, things changed. And so I made a pivot and went into tech. And I worked at a fintech company called Second Market for 3 years. That was my first startup experience. So I joined when the company was maybe 30 people, saw it grow to 175, got to be a part of a culture committee and saw all kinds of, I think what comes with scale and what comes with various rounds of financing and all of that. But it was an incredible experience. And then I made my way onto the venture side and worked at a venture capital firm for a couple of years in New York City, and then went back and then missed operating. So I went back into startups and went to a consumer technology company backed by Sequoia, Lightspeed, all of the sort of heavy hitters in Silicon Valley. And that brought me to Los Angeles. And I was there for about 2 years and learned a ton. And also, that is where I learned about the California olive oil industry. So in New York, I never cooked. I had a spreadsheet of 600 restaurants, come from a family of very obsessive home cooks. And so it started to seep back into me as I progressed in my 20s. And that in New York was where my curiosity was piqued in terms of what types of cooking oils are people using, just that entire space. And at the same time, I was working in tech and all we were talking about were apps and being on your phone, which now looking at how we're all just so addicted to our phones, that seems so quaint. But at the time, I remember thinking, I wonder if there's a way for me to create, go back into physical products and do something or build a brand that inspires people to live offline more and be more analog. That really was something that was floating in my head, along with I also want to do something in this really interesting olive oil space. So I kind of married the two together, but wasn't sure what to do. And then when I moved to California, I started visiting these incredible olive farmers and learning about the industry here. And that was oh, that's interesting. I could actually maybe partner with, a farm that I admire and want to work with and do something there. So that was It was so fascinating because, I didn't come from food and I'm not a restaurateur. And I wasn't sure if anyone would even take my calls. And some people didn't, others didn't, which is why I'm a big believer in like, you just have to shoot your shot.
Yeah, absolutely. So, were you experimenting with making olive oil at home? What did it actually look like in practice? What did it look like to actually launch the brand itself?
This is like 2016, 2017 into 2018. And I will say, look, like the tools that we had already were Shopify for a website, Google, which I used every minute. We didn't have AI. So I always say to entrepreneurs, like, it's so much easier to start something now, which is great. But also you have to be able to like build something that you can actually like that can stand out because it can be so noisy. But for me, it was a couple of things. Number one, education. So I took classes at the UC Davis School of Olive, like the olive oil school. And I learned about the sensory evaluation of olive oil, chemical analysis of olive oil, like dove deep. And so that gave me just some grounding to then be able to go talk to farm partners. And finding farm partners honestly was rudimentary Googling and calling people and knocking down doors and showing up uninvited and just like very old fashioned way of reaching out. And then I wasn't shy about telling people in my orbit, friends of friends, that I was working on this. I didn't like keep it hidden away. And so, when you do that, people are like, oh, you should talk to my sister. She has a clothing company. And, that there may not be similarities, but there are similarities in that it's a physical good and you need packaging and you need the supplier. And like talk to her, or you should talk to my friend. He has this incredible, peanut butter brand. And so that was so helpful. I always say that to entrepreneurs too, like asking for 15 minutes of people's time. People will be generous if you have specific questions that you want to dig into.
What did the first production or bottling run teach you that you couldn't learn through research or preparation alone?
I went into it extremely naively. Like I thought I was like, I'm not doing anything. I came from a background where I saw data engineers doing like LLM models back in 2000, 2015, like early LLM stuff. And so I was like, I'm putting like all oil in a bottle. Like this can't be that hard. I'm not trying to do anything crazy. No, it was so much more complicated. The material that we chose as the paper for the label didn't that they didn't get along with each other. We had issues with the cork top over time. We had issues with, from a supply demand inventory planning standpoint, I was always running out of stock because I didn't know how to plan inventory properly. Just so many things that I would have never really thought about. And then I also think that that naivete, if I knew what I know now, I don't know if I would do it.
Tell me more.
It's very daunting. It's very scary. Like it was, and I think now it's been such a sort of like a spiritual, holistic journey that when I look back now, I'm like, okay, yes. But I don't know, 4 years ago in the thick of it, I don't know if I would.
How did you get through that? I mean, were you actively thinking that in the moment? I shouldn't have done this, or is this just all hindsight?
It's total hindsight of just saying, oh my gosh, if I knew everything, what I would navigate, would I do it? Would that like young girl, young woman, would she like jump into that? Oof, wow. But no, in the moment, I saw momentum. That's the thing. I also saw it was like while this was happening on this side, I saw customer demand. I saw that the brand resonated. I saw that people were buying it and we were selling out. I think if we didn't have that at all, then maybe it would be like, what are we doing here? But when, there's nothing like, I think Mark Cuban says it, like, there's nothing that can cure a company besides like sales can cure a company. And so I think that that was helpful.
I normally reserve this question when I ask it for the end of a conversation, but I think it's sort of fitting to ask it now. Is there any advice in particular that you would have given yourself at that point in time that maybe would have changed the trajectory or made a significant difference in shaping how the business turned out or maybe how quickly things moved along?
No, because I'm a believer that it all has to map out the way it's supposed to. So I'm not like a coulda, shoulda, woulda type of person. That being said, I think the one thing I would want to go back and say is like, document these like lessons and learnings even more than you are. I'm glad that I did do some journaling and writing, but I think I could have done even more in real time because then you like look back and you see how far you've come. And it is an incredible kind of living, breathing, I don't know, body of work of your own self that you can like go back and excavate if you want to. So that's probably something I would say.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. I want to talk a little bit about the bottle design because I think it's such an iconic part of Brightland. And I'm wondering how you thought about both bottle design and branding from the onset. And I'll leave it at that. I'll leave it sort of open ended.
I mean, I took a look at the category and saw that people were not inspired visually. They were saying they had no idea what they were buying, what brand they were buying. And this is 2017, 2016. So again, like a lot has changed. And since Brightland started, we were really the first, if not one of the first. We now have a sea of very aesthetically driven brands, right? So like now it's a different story. But then it was really this like kind of a desert in that way. And so I just wanted something that stood out. It was like everyone was doing green, everyone was doing this green kind of boring situation. And so I said, okay, how can we turn it on its head? How can we really delight in California produce? We knew we wanted the brand to be about California lifestyle, California ease, and honoring the commitment to California farms. And so, how can we bring that out with odes to that? Like an ode to the California brightness of California produce. And so that's why, like, there's a lot of bright colors. We chose a very bright color palette. I'm Indian origin, so I think there was that piece of it that was important to me to lean into like some more maximalism and not try to be super minimalist and cream and, you know. And then I was more intrigued by brands in the liquor space. I thought liquor was doing some cool stuff. I thought beauty always. And so I looked to those industries and saw, okay, what pieces can I bring to this massive category that we haven't seen yet?
Yeah, that makes complete sense. It's a very interesting way of looking at it. My understanding is that you launched solely D2C online to start. Is that correct?
Yes, but on the first day that we launched or the second day, we did get outreach from a really cute shop in Brooklyn wanting to carry our products. So I think like within a few weeks they were carrying it. But yeah.
How did you think about the role that D2C would play versus retail? Because in doing research, my understanding is that you've also been extremely selective in where and when you've shown up in retail environments. So I'm really interested to hear about how you thought about that strategically.
It was originally it was capability and understanding of that of that landscape. Like I chose to stay focused for my own sanity and for what I thought the business could handle. I went to a fancy food show and was like, I cannot, like, what is this? This is so new. I'd never seen anything like it. Very intriguing. But I saw that we could have momentum in direct to consumer. For us, our unit economics work for direct to consumer. We're not a $2 granola bar where you're like trying to buy it, sell it online, and it makes no sense. And so I also knew early on not to try to compare myself to other, like another better for you, like a cheese puff company or an ice cream, like a better for you yogurt or ice cream. You know, like we have so many peers in this food emerging brand CPG space, but everyone has a different kind of chip that they can play. Some brands are really good. They maybe should be looking at food service more. Others, maybe they're like going to crush it on Amazon because they can do some like big pack sizes and that's the way people want to consume. So it was really about understanding who you are and not trying to be everything. And so I just knew who we were and what could work and what I wanted, my vision for it, I was very clear on early on. Yeah, so it made it easy. And then capability too. Cause you know, when I started, I was very bootstrapped. It was me and an intern. And so even when we had like a regional chain store, like a grocery store, reach out to us and say, we've been seeing you, like would love to carry you. I said, no, thank you. We can't do that. Because they were like, oh, we need you to go through a distributor. We need you to do this and that. And I was like, we're barely like, we're trying to, you know, stay in stock for, you know, a couple months at a time. Like we can't be trying to do this right now. And so that made it simple. Over time, that was very early though, but over time, we started saying yes more as the business scaled more, you know. And I think I also had times when that very clear vision got more muddy which I think happens to everybody. Where there are very few, I think, entrepreneurs who can like just stay straight, whether you raise money, maybe there's investors that may not whisper in your ear, but like may whisper in your ear, but it just may also be like the general ecosystem, hires that you bring on, like just everything ends up like creating a little more noise. And yeah, and then time, who you are when you start something 3 years in, 6 years in, 4 years in, like you are continually changing too.
What was that vision in your mind? And is it still the same? Did it get muddy and then clearer again? Has it
Yeah.
shifted? What was that vision and what is the vision today?
Yeah. The original vision really was like an ASOP for the kitchen. And then it did get muddied. And because it's just your own self-limiting, like you put a cap on what you think you can, like what you think can, but there's no such thing. That's like you creating a false limitation. There's no limitations. And then of course, like the whispers and what we should do. And this is, oh, consumers, 90% of them are buying, in store like that. And it's like people are building incredible businesses, totally upending these types of like nonsense statistics constantly. So, I think it was like forgetting some of that. And I think now it's less trying to be this for that. It's more, what are we doing? Like, what's the mission and vision that's really like serving the customer and serving people? And so now it's just more rooted in flavor, sensory enhancement, that like analog joy by way of our incredible products.
When you initially went to market, did you go to market with one or multiple SKUs?
2 SKUs.
And what were those 2 SKUs?
They were plain extra virgin olive oils, our 2 hero SKUs. We called them Awake and Alive. That was because coming from beauty, I was very inspired by cosmetics companies having whimsical, incredible names and creating entire stories around that. And so I wanted to do that. And they were an ode to, this is how I wanted you to feel when you were using our products, not being on your phone. You feel more awake and you feel more alive rather than feeling dead on this.
And how did you land on your initial price points?
I looked at categories that I admired and saw, again, beauty, liquor. I didn't look at food at all. I looked at other categories because I said, I'm really interested in how people price and how they think about value, how they think about perception, and then customer behavior. And at the time, I was really interested in a cycling class called Soul Cycle, and each class was $37. And women, men I knew were going 4 times a week. And so I did the math on that and I was like, that's insane. So you can spend $37 on a 45-minute class, but this on a bottle of like incredible high quality olive oil. So that was one part of my brain. The other part of my brain looked at my cost of goods, and the extra virgin olive oil comes from California, which is it has the highest quality standards in the world and is the most expensive in the world. And so there were also the fundamental realities. I wasn't importing cheap oil that I could then sell it for $19.99 and call it a day. So I had some realities that I had to navigate. And so both of these things ended up working out.
Were there any surprising costs in the early days when getting the business off the ground?
The oil is so expensive. In our Boston, people think that our bottle is the most expensive all the time. No, our bottle is like a tiny, like if I did the pie chart, it's like the bottle is like a tiny sliver, the label's a tiny sliver, the cork top's a tiny sliver, the packaging box is like a little sliver, and then the big, it's the oil.
That's so fascinating. Is there any way to, I guess, easily bring costs down when it comes to the oil, or are you just stuck?
I don't think of it as stock. I think of it as we're investing in American farmers. We're investing in revitalizing this like incredible industry that was starting to like pivot into pistachios and almonds, which are much more water intensive. And for California, which is drought filled, that's not exactly a great situation. And it's not great for the farmers either. They have like $1 million water bills versus olive trees need like a tenth of the water, right? And so I think of it as like actually doing something amazing with Mother Nature. But have I thought, oh my God, this would be so much easier if I just like shut the California thing off and like went and got oil from Spain? Like, yeah, I've had those thoughts, but the brand was just so rooted in wanting to celebrate this American farmer and like do it this way. And so, yeah.
Something I'm particularly interested in is the competitive landscape generally. My understanding is that the price of olive oil over the last several years has skyrocketed when talking about imported oil, both due to tariffs and conflict in the Middle East. And so I'm wondering if you've been able to tap into that at all in terms of your messaging and keeping your prices. I guess I don't actually know if you've had to raise prices over the last several years, but I'm wondering if you've considered that when thinking about the competitive landscape.
I mean, we've been in business for 8 years and we did our first nominal, tiny price increase 6 months ago. That is crazy. Like, that's unheard of, especially for a digital brand. I have friends who have companies in all industries and they are constantly adjusting their prices. And guess what? They're not bringing them down, they're taking them up. And so it's a really huge deal that we never did that. And we didn't want to do that for the customer. It's interesting with the imported piece of things because I've heard that a lot of countries are actually subsidizing a lot of those increases, like Spain and Italy, because a lot of the countries, they depend on this industry so much for their economy. And so I've heard that it actually hasn't affected brands that are based here that import as much.
Interesting.
Now I could be, but and things are changing so quickly constantly. But last I heard that was what was happening. And so we're not really spending time, we'll get a briefing here or there of like understanding the lay of the land, but I'm a big believer in watering your garden. There's plenty of stuff to work on for us internally, supporting the farm partners we work with, thinking about how do we talk about living life offline? How do we talk about delicious, incredible food? I would rather be doing
Yeah. How are you thinking about the competitive landscape in terms of, I guess, just brand separation and product offering? Yeah, I guess more holistically. Because as you alluded to earlier, I think the olive oil market in general has grown substantially over the last several years. So I'm curious how you're thinking about competitive
I think it's
separation.
exciting because that means that people are caring about what is on their pantries when before it was seen as an afterthought. So it's actually like it's moving in an incredible direction. My hope is that every brand that's coming out or that's trying to do the thing is actually putting incredible product out there and that it's high quality, truly extra virgin. Like that's the hope. But beyond that, it's an exciting time to be in this space. And again, like, since our original vision was to be the Aesop for the kitchen, and the only like kind of pivot that we've done is really rooted in sensory experience and that sort of thing, I actually think that there's so much opportunity.
At what point did you introduce your next SKU?
8 to 10 months in, I was talking to our direct to consumer customers, and that was the best thing because I had this direct relationship with folks who ordered. And so I would ask them, what else do you want to see from us? And so the things that I heard the most were like, really want to see if you guys could do like complimentary vinegars. I would love to see infused oils. And so then I was like, okay, well, what flavors are interesting? And people said garlic and basil, but lemon kept coming up. And so we really like to honor the seasons at Brightland and do things seasonally. And so we came out with a lemon olive oil during citrus season.
How have you thought about which I guess let me reframe this. When you introduced vinegar, for example, how did you know it was the right time to introduce a completely different product?
I mean, the reality is like, I don't know if you know. Maybe like bigger brands know. They have all this like but I think a brand that's emerging and is growing quickly, like, I don't know if you really know. But at the time, I think it was very like instinct driven and also like based on, again, like customer feedback, what people are excited about. And so there were some things that were just like no brainer. This is going to be an evergreen part of the portfolio. And then, like, I think what you were asking or going to ask was, how do you know when something is limited run versus how do you know when you're going to keep it as a permanent part of your collection? And for us, the way that I always thought about it was, let me have some like internal benchmarks in my head of like what consumer behavior looks like, what purchasing and buying behavior looks like. Is it really creating an overall lift for the business? What does a wait list look like if we do go out of stock with it? How much are we seeing people want it back? Like, just all of those signals really help. And we've gotten some right and some totally wrong.
I think the point you made around customer feedback informing that decision early on is really interesting. And I've heard from a bunch of founders at this point that it's been difficult for them as they've scaled to lose that degree of direct connection to the consumer. Did you feel that as well? And how do you get feedback like that as you scale and try to keep that relationship alive?
I can see that it could be really difficult because you have so many competing priorities. And at some point, you're trying to also talk to your retail buyers and you're also trying to hire and maybe you're trying to fundraise. Like, I see that. At the end of the day, it was always like, well, the customer is everything. We're nobody without the customer. And so I always just kept a good pulse with folks. Like, even now, I jump on calls with customers and we have an email kind of flow that comes from me if you've bought a certain number of times. And so then I review that inbox and watch that really closely. So yeah, I mean, I think there's more that all of us could be doing, but I think there are ways to make it intentional. And being direct to consumer like makes it simpler.
Yeah. Are there any data points in particular that tell you that someone has a high propensity to have a higher lifetime value? I'm thinking about things like time to repurchase, for example, or if they start with a bundle or yeah, I don't know, subscription, multi-SKU. Yeah, if there's any early signal that you get online that tells you somebody's going to stick around.
Definitely. Yeah. We have like 4 or 5 different ways that we've been able to slice and dice and identify that. So it's super interesting. And it's some of the things that you described. It's people also gifting. Someone who gifts actually is like has a very high lifetime value because then they'll come back and gift again. Then the gift recipient too. So it's super interesting.
Yeah, how do you think about the role of gifting in general for the business?
Early on, I didn't even think of it as a thing. It was just, and I was shocked. Our first holiday or second holiday season was just crazy, and I couldn't believe it. And we had ordered more inventory than we thought we needed to, but then we were sold out by December 2nd, that first or second Christmas. So since then, it's just been a bigger and bigger game. We are so delighted by it. Gifting is a $1 trillion industry, and it's a space that it's all good vibes. Like, it makes people so happy. So to be a brand, a food brand that gets to be a part of that, what a dream come true.
Something else I've noticed is select partnerships with other brands. And there's two I'd like to call out. So one is your partnership or collaboration, I should say, with Sumo Citrus, which feels very naturally aligned from an ingredient standpoint. The other that I find really interesting is your collaboration with the Peanuts franchise. I'm a massive Peanuts fan, so this is like a delightful experience for me personally. But I'm interested to hear how you think about, call it partnership selection or collaboration criteria, because those are two very distinctly different types of collaborations.
Yes.
Walk me through. This is going to be multi-part, but I'm interested to hear how something like that comes to be to begin with. Do you look for folks to collaborate with? Were those inbound? And what sort of criteria do you think through when determining this is going to be, yeah, like a mutually beneficial partnership?
It's really coming back to our values and who we are. So it is about, we knew that for sumo, we like to talk about the seasons, seasonal fruit. We love our flavor franchise. So it was such a natural partnership. And then with Snoopy and Peanuts, there's a piece of the brand that has a little bit of whimsy, honoring American heritage, like nostalgia. And there's no better whimsical American heritage partner than Snoopy and Peanuts and the gang. I also have, like, as the founder, I am obsessed with Snoopy, like, obsessed. And so, I mean, I think Snoopy was on my, like, vision board when I started the company. One day I would love to work with them. And so, yeah, to have it come true, and we've sold tens of thousands of units of like, it's just such a dream come true.
Do you have a sense for, I guess, how many incremental units were sold as a result of partnering with the brand? I guess it's kind of a, maybe it's a bad question if it's a net new product, but maybe in terms of social presence or I don't know, other factors. Yeah, do you have a sense of like maybe the sort of second order knock-on effects?
I don't know about second order or that kind of thing, but I do know that When we announced Snoopy, it was our most engaged social post that we've ever had. I also know that, their team, was thrilled and wants to do more with that, so I think all of those things, like those are signs that point to, and I want to add something else when it comes to partnerships. That's really important. Having a partner on the other side, like it can't be just us living in our dreamland wanting to partner with this brand and this brand. The other party needs to be equally intrigued, excited, engaged, energized. And so we found that with both Sumo and with Peanuts, and that's really important. We've talked to other, brands or potential partnerships where it was so obvious that that other side was not that excited. And I'm so glad we didn't move forward with those.
At what point did you decide it was time to raise capital?
Hmm. When I kept running out of stock and we had retailers, like I remember Anthropology, maybe Nordstrom, like some of those interesting retailers were reaching out. And I was like, I can't, they were like, we want 600 units. And at the time, I remember saying, I can send you 200, but we can't. I think that was when it was like opportunity is here. So that was one. And then I knew I wanted the business to hit like around 1 million run rate before I raised because I really did want to show proof. Not coming from, I didn't work at a D2C darling and could just raise with an like on the back of a napkin with an idea in the back of a napkin. Yeah, I wanted that like proof point. And so both of those things triggered me saying, okay, maybe it's time.
What resonated most with investors, and what was some of their pushback early on, if you remember?
For the people who got it, they got it, Like, in terms of resonance, it was the same things that one person would be excited about, those same things someone else wouldn't be excited about, right? And so that's it. Like, it's that simple. Like, it was like, okay, you wanna build, like, the Aesop of the kitchen, super premium. This is sort of like if you look at champagne, this is the Vouv of all of like, no one's doing this. Those are all reasons for somebody to get really excited. Those are also all reasons for somebody to be like, "Okay, I don't see it. I don't like it." So, I saw that a lot.
And what did you deploy the capital on once it was secured?
Early on the first round that I did, I hired an operations director because at the time I was doing ops and that was the like space that I knew the least about. And so I was like, okay, we got it. And so hired an ops director, got to hire some like, marketing like part-time, just got to like pull together like a ragtag scrappy team. What else did we invest in? We invested in inventory, purchasing. Yeah, those are and some marketing, like being able to say, "Okay, we've been able to prove out this way and this way. Can we, like, put a little more fuel to the fire?"
You mentioned ops being sort of a gap for you. I'm interested to hear about what you feel like your biggest strengths were, maybe at this point in time, and also some weaknesses too. Like maybe if there's anything other than operational on the operational side, like if there were any other gaps that you saw. And I ask because I'm interested to hear how that's changed over time, if at
Yeah.
all.
I think strengths were still naivete. Like, I think that's a huge strength because it just keeps you going forward. A lot of energy and enthusiasm and, like, incredible I for the most part, have always been very optimistic. So it's kinda like, yeah, there's no other way. This is going to happen. Like, of course. And then weaknesses, impatience, assuming, that's a big one. Assuming, "Oh, you have 20 years of finance experience. Of course you're gonna know this." Assuming, "Okay, we spoke about this. I'm gonna assume that you're gonna take it away and, like, take care of it." So a lot of assuming has gotten me in a lot of trouble.
Do you feel like the naivete still serves you equally well today? And do you feel like you've sort of shored up those weaknesses over time?
The assuming part, yeah, impatience here and there, but yeah, for the most part, because I'm also like very much now like we'll just operate like time is on our side. Like I'm not that impatient anymore. So the assuming piece of it, yeah, that's a muscle to constantly. That's a tough one because you want to be like up here. You don't want to be in it all the time. But if you're not in it, then yeah, it doesn't work. And so that's been an interesting one. And then the naivete, I don't feel as I'm kind of like, okay, bring it on. Whatever happens, happens. And a few years ago, I was very much like, oh my gosh, what's gonna happen? And now it's more so like, okay, whatever.
Was there a moment where that clicked for you? I find that to be really interesting.
Yes, I made a list. I don't remember what year, 23, 24, 2024. I don't remember. I made a list of everything that had gone wrong the year and the year prior. Randomly getting an ADA lawsuit, our website crashing, just a long list. An employee who you really like believed in leaving randomly, you having to fire people, like all the stuff. So I made this long list. And then the more I talked to people and I was like, is this normal? Everyone's like, oh my God, you've actually like not gone through that much. Like they named all the things they've navigated. And so I made a list of all of that. I was like, here's what could happen. And so I sort of review that every year. And I'm like, okay, yeah, that changed it a lot when you like put it onto paper and you're like, oh, this is what it is.
I think that's excellent advice for founders listening to this show. And I'm also getting a real sense for how much you appreciate writing, documentation, and reflection in general.
Yeah, it's very helpful because it gives you a place to put everything and it's not just living abstract anymore. And then it also takes away some of the power of it too. You're like, okay, this is just another thing on the list that you can like check off. Even if it's not something you want to check off, it's not a fun thing to check off. It's just something you check off and then you move on.
So the brand has scaled, I would say, massively over the last 8 or so years. So congratulations to start on all of the success. How many doors are you in today?
Well, retail is a very small part of our business, but we're in, I don't know, a couple thousand doors.
Are you comfortable sharing roughly like the breakdown of what portion of your business comes from retail versus direct to consumer?
Yeah, I think retail is like 5 to 6% of the business. I don't even know, maybe 10%.
Wow, that's shockingly low to me.
Yeah, it's really small.
Do you have a target number?
No, no.
Interesting.
I'm really like, we love our online business. Amazon is growing. I don't know. I feel really, I'm not trying to be everything to everybody.
I was going to ask if you have a target number of doors to be in by the end of the year, but I'm sensing the answer is no to that as well.
We don't. It's just what feels right. For retail, it's like, if we get an inbound, we don't have any salespeople. It's inbound. We have boutique stores that we're in. That's a separate, besides grocery. That's an amazing part of our business too. We love those shops. And so with those, yeah, we really do like engage with those stores, and we want to keep building that side of our business.
I guess I'm interested to hear how you're thinking about growth in general and maybe what your goals are for the next 6 months, let's say. If there's not a target number of doors, what is it that you're hoping to achieve over the next 6 months?
I think for us, it's storytelling, compelling storytelling. Like we want to be that brand that people are like when you ask somebody who do they look to, I want us to be that brand that people are like, God, the way they tell stories and they took something so. And I think we've done a pretty good job. Like I've heard people say, oh, you're on a lot of mood boards and a lot of that. But I don't rest on those laurels. And so I think we need to push ourselves more in creative storytelling. Like that's really the future. It's how compelling are the stories that you tell that bring people in emotionally, because we're not creating, this isn't a utility company. Like it's not a utility, it's not a commodity. And so we have to do things differently. So that's really big. And then the other focus is how can we work even smarter and leaner? Like the team is leaner than we were last year, and it's working really well. And so we're really focused on how do we do more with less, from the sense of eliminate more calls or like redundancies. Like, how do we like really get tight in how we operate internally? And it's been incredible. Like, I'm on less calls than I ever have been, but yet the business is doing better than it ever has. Those are the things that I'm really focused on.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Like, it doesn't to be, oh my God, everything's a fire, or like, I'm on back to back. Like, I don't get a break and I don't eat lunch. Like, I don't know if it has to be that way.
Did you feel like it had to be that way
Oh,
in the
yeah.
early days, and did it?
No, I had moments where it did go into that direction, a little more chaotic than I would like. But I've always said, like, we need to run like a very calm ship. And for the most part, we did. But there were times when it went a little more chaotic than I would have liked to. And it's all dependent on who's on your team, what their level of expertise is. That, calm confidence that people bring to the table and the subject matter like. And so I think right now we have a very good thing going.
Are there any metrics in particular in the business that you are keeping a particularly close eye on?
Oh, yeah. We look at, obviously, like net revenue, we look at contribution margin, we look at net income, EBITDA, contribution margin before marketing spend, and contribution margin after marketing.
Beyond financial metrics, any other metrics that you're keeping a closer eye on?
Team retention. We look at like olive trees planted.
Yeah. What have you changed your mind about since starting the company?
Oh, yeah. That you like there was somebody or a lot of people say you hire people and you get out of their way. And I actually think that's like terrible. Like maybe that works at Unilever or something. I'm not sure. But I think that's terrible advice. It's like you hire people, have to set the standards. You cannot make a single assumption about anything. And then you can tiptoe your way out while also having one foot always involved. That is truly what it is. I really heard that from a lot of people of like, don't be a micromanager. And so I think there's a middle ground where there's a micromanager who doesn't like allow their team members to do anything and they're like so in the weeds and then there's the person who is like, I hired you. You have 20 years of, finance experience. I'm going to assume, bye. And I think I erred on that side and learned a lot of lessons. And so now I'm here.
I find that in a lot of founder interviews, there's a moment in time that's very serendipitous and completely alters the trajectory or the outcome of the business. And it's something that you could have, that person could have never planned for. And it's just the right connection at the right time. It could be we're actually in a recession. And because of that, X, Y, and Z.
Mm.
Yeah. And I'm curious if there are any moments like that in Brightland's history that you can speak to.
It's a good question. So I think we've had mini versions of it. I don't think we've seen like a big version of that. Like we are not part of a protein craze or a tinned fish craze. Like we're not in those. But I think we've seen, and I'm so grateful for this, like mini things that have like basically done this for us rather than like this, we've done this. And so some of those are, whether it's being, I don't know, recognized by Oprah as one of her favorite things, which felt very like out of the blue and oh my God, like crazy, to like celebrities sharing us and that leading to things, to we did a partnership with Sweet Green right before the pandemic and like that really helped in that moment in time. So we've seen these like compounding effects, but we have not been a part of like everyone is talking about frozen fruit and we're riding that wave or something.
Yeah, no, I think that's really interesting and speaks to the overall health of the business, which is good.
I was saying to a friend, I'm like, I feel like Brightland is like kind of like a cockroach. Like we're just going to be around. Like other things are going to come and go and you're going to see us. And we were like really building that way. Like we're going to be around for a very long time.
Yeah. I think we have time for one more question. Where do you see the company 3 to 5 years from now?
I see a company that is even more confident in who it is. If we do it right, leading the way in creative storytelling, still operating like time is on our side and not just being a trendy brand, stronger sort of like fundamentals than ever, and a model for what can be. Like if you build a company with calm, like grace under pressure. Yeah, thinking about like the enchanting side of business, like that can you create in that way? Then we will be the model for that.
I can't wait to see how it all unfolds. Thank you so much for the time today, Ash. If you want to share with listeners where they can find Brightland, please feel free to do so.
Yeah. So we're at brightland.co without the M. And then at We Are Brightland on Instagram. And then I'm at Hello Aishwarya on Instagram. And I'd love to hear from you. So shoot any notes and cheering anybody who is starting something or in the thick of something, wholeheartedly cheering you on. You are amazing.
Thank you so much.
Josh.
All right, let's debrief. What stood out to me most was this unique combination of naivete, patience, and grit that Ash exhibits. While she may have entered the olive oil industry without knowing just how complicated the business would become, the challenges that followed seem to have made her steadier rather than more cautious. She now talks about setbacks as an inevitable part of building, growth as the accumulation of smaller wins, and patience as a genuine competitive advantage. That perspective feels deeply embedded in Brightland. The company hasn't relied on a single breakout moment or chased growth in an inauthentic way. Ash is building Brightland to endure, with stronger fundamentals, a clear sense of identity, and the belief that time is on its side. And I'm extremely confident that the company will continue to find success as a result. Again, I learned so much during my conversation with Ash, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. If you haven't already, make sure to follow and leave a review wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for listening.